Uh, James, George alluded to this early in the show, hit upon the two commits that were lost this week. I know, well, I don't know because you've got connections. Maybe you do know. We can conjecture that it's just simply they're 0-2 and I can play just about anywhere. I can go to X, Y, and Z. Therefore, it looks like it's going better there. So I'm going to decommit. Or there's some kind of perception of what's going on behind the scenes that contributes to the 0-2 that these commits aren't real happy about.
I'm going to be honest with you. It's a combination of a lot of different things. And I did this on my show. And this will give you some good clicks and, banter. And, a lot of people go back and forth. I've never been a hater. If you're good, you're good. If you're not, you're not. What I will say is I kudos to Auburn, Miami. I'd say Florida as well. Not their fan base. Not this is not no knock on their fan because their fan bases follow suit, but they do a very good job of crafting the narrative, regardless of the situation. It makes it feel like everything is in control, even if they're not having coaches. And there's always a good positive spin that comes out of these different things. All we've seen, in particular, this last offseason, it started before that, but I get it. It starts with Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter was committed, and his decommitment was very loud. Now, the minute we get any type of big prospect, it's always, when are you going to decommit? When are you going to decommit? We went from talking about how we don't spend any money in the transfer portal to now we're having articles about how we spend $13 million in the transfer portal. And it's not done right without any true sources or anything of that nature. I say these things to say that it's got to be that. It's got to be the perception, and the perception is crafted by the media and what people read. In particular, your own media, your own beat. George made the joke about our drills. They show the worst drills. I don't, as a football guy, I don't even know why you're showing that. There's nothing cool about some of those drills. They're mundane, everyday things, but they are things that, without context, are just going to get you trolled and hammered. And this is, regardless of what they say, it's a click-driven business, and negativity sells, trolling sells. But why do you ask every commit? Like, why has Solomon Thomas been asked 20 times since he's been committed to Florida State? Are you committed? Are you going to go to
the game? Sorry to talk over you.
Started before that.
Way before the
Tramel Jones literally had guys on campus, and Tramel, to the point where he asked me, Coach, can you be there when I'm getting interviewed? Do I have to interview with these guys? Asking him every week, are you still committed? When are you decommitting? Are you going to Florida? Are you going to this? And what ends up happening is these guys are like, well, damn, do they even want me here? Why are they keep asking me this? And only our beat does that. And how do they make their money? They make their money. I've even asked, is it annoying? And they say yes. And the reason why I say it can't just be the losses, we went 13-1 last year. And you still are struggling to recruit. So I believe it's some guys just aren't really good at the way recruiting is going now. I don't know. I can't speak, and I won't speak intelligently on if we're overpaying or not overpaying with name, image, and likeness due to our NIL collective. The reason why it's technically illegal to even know what your NIL deal is until you sign. So I don't want to. What I don't know, I don't have to be accountable for. And even if I did know, I probably wouldn't tell people. But it's getting lost because Auburn just lost the Cal, right? And there's still national and local articles about how they're going to make a run to have the number one class if they continue to land some of the people that they want. Texas, I understand Texas being good. Texas has always recruited well. Miami has always recruited well. Like, these other places have recruited well. Florida recruits well because they have all of these they have these off-field staffers. I even laid out a plan of what I think Mike should do in order to get that thing back up on par, but I can't tell you, but I do know the position coaches that are the most shaky are the ones that lost their recruits. And when Jimbo put his brown jacket on, we didn't have this. We didn't have these problems. But he was doing NIL deals probably before NIL was even around. But he had closers, and closers closed. Old man Bobby Bowden, the last week of signing day, always closed strong. We always jumped ahead of everybody because they had a better idea in post. I think they just got to do it from having seen their recruiting a little bit in some areas. I think they need some people to give them better intel so that they can know when they're, what does that song say? Know when to hold them, when to fold them.
There is no like Zach Smith in his day when he was at Ohio Smith, Heartline, what he's got going on now. Name your like young guy who's on top of recruiting. Brewster for a hot minute here with getting things done for Jimbo. Like there is no guy like that. Surtain on the defense feels like it. And it's like what I always say is like I love it, Odell, I love Papuchis, I love what both of them have done. But it's like you've got two of the same coach you up, diamonds in the rough. Like somebody, like they've got to have that guy that's going to go out here and get guys. Before we run out of time, he was talking earlier about like at the end of the day, this strategy of bringing guys through the portal mixed with what we've recruited, it's worked out. Now it doesn't. So now it's like you need to recruit these 5-star D linemen, D ends, offensive tackles year after year, so that when you go into this year, you have some sophomores and some, redshirt freshmen and things that are just beasts, be it a Bain or whoever that name is. Like they don't have to come in and be impact freshmen right off the bat and be starters. But like 5 stars, those true freak DNs and defensive tackles and things of that nature, like they're not going to just transfer out of Florida State or Ohio State because they don't get quote unquote snaps their freshman year. It's going to take till that freshman, sophomore, and junior year. Certain positions, whatever, you can go get this or that every year, but there's a certain amount of specific positions, defensive end, defensive tackle, offensive tackle. Like you just got to get those guys. And even our classes that are, 12th, technically we're ahead of Miami and one behind Florida in the composite. And that's just high school without transfers having anything to do with it. So it's not like it's been terrible. But to his point, the coaches that have fallen down on the job this year, whatever the case may be, whatever you want to call it, just the players or the coaches, D-line, linebacker, D-tackle, like that's where we're struggling in recruiting. That's where the struggling is on the field. So, like, yeah, we can always go and get things to supplement out of the portal. We can get guys, Jared Verse for 2 years, Jermaine for 1. But you still have to have Florida State top guys coming in out of high school at those 3 positions, and also linebackers as well. Like, you don't have to get a ton of them, but in 5 years, you got to get more than Blake Nicholson. Like, and Blake Nicholson's great. It's not like, is it any mistake that the one true kind of high 4-star linebacker we brought in is showing out now and is going to be a key part of the defense? I don't think so. But sorry, there's a little rant for you.
Love it. That's why we've got you here. These two make it roll for us each and every week. We also appreciate when Chris Frazier from Spear Addicts can join us and we get the whole crew together. But it's Wednesday, folks, 6 p.m. Eastern time, Florida State Live. Make it on back next week. Bring a friend or 2 or 50. In the meantime, Den Media Group with James and the Renegade Report, of course, with George. You can catch also George after the ball game against Memphis. What time is the Memphis game?
That is a good question. Have they even announced it yet?
Noon.
Okay.
And Cal is 7 p.m. next week. Noon game start.
Hopefully we get a win. Hopefully that's a fun post-game show. Been pretty pretty rough the first 2 go around.
Well,
we lived a blessed life last year.
I'm sure you guys have already reviewed the schedule, but where at one point a couple of weeks before the season, I was looking at the schedule, trying to look for who could give them some issues. Now I'm looking at, wow, these are
Georgia Tech off the ball. So it's like we watched what they did. James talked about what they did to us, and I watched Syracuse do what they did to us to them. And go look up their ratings. That dude came in fresh from Georgia. These different teams. We didn't get to talk about this. We'll talk about it next time. But this is also like a different game. Like you go back to the fundamentals always, but college football has changed a lot in the past 2 years and what you can do in an off season to get good or get bad real freaking fast.
The biggest thing is you just got to hit in the portal. And I'm going to be, again, I told one of my friends that Cam Ward hit. Martinez hit.
Yep.
The defensive tackle or DN that Miami got, I believe, from Michigan, from like a couple of those guys, they hit. That you can't hate on it. Like they, on top of them recruiting very well on the offensive line and developing that with some wide receivers, they hit. When the 2 years Mike Norvell had, he hit. Right now, you haven't hit on DJU. You haven't hit on the running back, Roydell Williams. You haven't hit on the you haven't hit with Jackson. So just think about the 3 levels: quarterback, D tackle, quarterback, D line, running back. That I just talked about with Miami. Big hits, all very good impact players. You can see the excitement, even though I'd argue, if you go back a year to the date, you would see them praising TVD the exact same way they're praising Cam Ward. Cam Ward had a 5-touchdown performance against Texas A&M, a much better team than the University of Florida. Until October 6th, I believe, they were praising him until then. Actually, no. They were praising him until the game before Georgia Tech, but whatever. My point in all of that is when you hit, you hit. When you don't hit, you don't hit. But you got to be able to cut bait. And that's what Mike has to figure out. What's the best situation for him? You got to be able to cut bait. And they haven't done well. But I really think it's got to be some of those guys, and their recruiting strategy has to get updated. It works for portal guys for the most part, but it doesn't work for high school. And you got to find a way to make it work for both.
And like, is it going to cease to work? Like when we think about portal guys, these are guys who were part of that last generation in my mind. Like it is a new mind of players. And also 2-3 years ago, everybody wasn't hitting the portal like they are now. Like we really kind of went in and scooped some guys. We got our ass busted for Skirton this year and several other guys that we just missed on. And if Skirton was here, who knows what the season is right now from how he's looked on the field. And but yeah, great conversation. I know it's like a Miami time. Like I feel like this might be the best conversation I've had about it since it happened. So there's that. Hopefully Memphis goes and lays down when they see the Florida State helmet, and we can get these guys some confidence. Either that or they actually figure it out.